All right. It is another week in Happy Valley. This is Connect Happy Valley A.M. live on the Connect Happy Valley YouTube channel. We are live at Pine Grove Hall in Pine Grove Mills, Pennsylvania. Check them out at pinegrovehall.com. I'm Chris Buchignani. He's Greg Woodman here with you every day, Monday through Friday, 9 to 10 a.m. Got a special guest in the house here representing the good folks at the Ability Athletes program at Penn State, Rise Above. Go to PennStateRiseAbove.org, here to talk about that group, the great event you guys have going on later this month, and just a really cool life story of a Penn Stater who's happy to be here in Happy Valley. Bernie Ryan, thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. Look forward to it.
So, Greg, I know you and Bernie have been good buddies for a long time. Bernie's been a loyal commenter on the different iterations of Connect Happy Valley, on all the articles we've posted there, and you actually interviewed him for your YouTube channel for a really interesting podcast, which is kind of how I got to know more about Bernie other than what he left in the comments section under some of my football articles. So introduce the audience to your friend.
Sure. Bernie Ryan, I feel, is the poster child of Happy Valley. Grew up in Hershey, PA, and came here to Penn State, but I don't want to tell his whole backstory other than he is a super volunteer, now retired, former pilot. Our kids swam together at State High. You know, his kids during summer swimming was in Welsh, Mine Science Park. Saw him at college meets when his daughter was swimming and my son was swimming out of Grove City. My son was swimming for St. Vincent. But more importantly, I'm so delighted he's here today to talk about his nonprofit work, in addition to his little pods of friendship he has, where every day he's with another group of people, whether they're meeting at Wegmans, meeting at the YMCA, meeting with us on the weekends. I mean, it's just a great guest to have on Connect Happy Valley, where we're attempting to connect hearts and to our sense of place, a place we love to live, work, and play. But you're here today to speak on behalf of Rise Above. So we jump right into that, his volunteer work with Rise Above, Chris?
Let's do it. Let's get the good stuff right out front, because Bernie, I would just hope if you could tell us a little bit about the organization and how you got involved, and then we're going to talk about the event you have coming up at the end of the month with Coach Smith.
Sure will. Thanks, Chris. Greg. Yeah, Greg and I we've spent a lot of time sitting on bleachers watching our kids stare at that black line going up and down the swimming pool. But thanks, guys. Just to get to the point, Rise Above is Rise Above Friends of Penn State's Adaptive Athletes. And it's a program to help, people are familiar probably with the Paralympics. This is the handicapped athlete opportunities for individuals who just want to participate, want a chance to do something they see their friends doing. So years ago in 1999, I think it was 99, Tim Curley, with his vision, the athletic director at the time at Penn State, brought in the women's track coach, a woman named Terry Jordan, and asked her to start up this program at Penn State. So she took it on and did a bang-up job. She called it the Ability Athlete Program, and it was kind of buzzing around the country. Big schools, when you think of colleges, and you think of Alabama, Illinois, Arizona, University of New Hampshire, some other smaller schools. Edinburgh, actually, here in Pennsylvania, it was known, and they focused on wheelchair basketball. But anyways, so my wife and I knew Terry. She was a neighbor, and we would go and help her at some of her events. It just assist measuring discus throws, or I got to do the starter of a 5K race one time. So in the mid 2008, 2010, there was a lot going on in the world, with the wars going on in the Middle East. So many of her athletes were veterans. As Greg mentioned, I was a veteran. So it was like talking to my brothers and sisters, between events. And we got caught on, and as my wife said, our son was going in the military, and heaven forbid something like this would happen to him, understanding that. And then, wouldn't you know it, my daughter, our son's sister, who now works at the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee with the para swimming. So it kind of became a family affair in a sense. So in the Penn State world, it died off, thanks to, unfortunately, due to Terry's retirement and COVID. But a couple of us have tried to start the program back up, and it's going. We've called our program Rise Above. And it's a nonprofit, our own nonprofit to assist Penn State. But it's not just a Penn State program. I want to make sure everybody understands that. Penn State is, you could look at that as the foundation, the center of excellence of the para-adaptive sports world. But it reaches out. We have people on our sled hockey team, the Coyotes, the State College Coyotes, as young as 10 and as old as in their 60s, that they come in to play. And they go to tournaments, but there's several Penn State students. Same goes for wheelchair basketball. And we also have a lot of individuals who are doing track. And that has been the background of Penn State, and that's been the excellent program. But the Penn State, with the facilities, the opportunities here, it gives those that want to go see how far they can achieve their athletic performance an opportunity. And Penn State has produced Paralympians that have been to Beijing, London, and so forth, in the track world, in the lifting world, the javelin world. And we may have somebody in LA in 2028. We'll have to see.
So what I like about that story right out of the gate, Bernie, is I think it does kind of capture everything that we try to bring to the fore every morning here on Connect Happy Valley AM, which is to point out all the different facets of this community that make it a great place to live, work, and play, and how that when they complement one another and when they work in conjunction, really great things can happen. So here you have a story of Penn State being a great about this cause, and you, Bernie, are one of the many people we like to talk about on this show who make the community of Happy Valley go. It's just a community of remarkable people. And so when it hits a bump in the road, tell me if you've heard this one before, when COVID comes along, here you had made that connection, and you say now you've banded together with some of these other incredible folks we have in the community to support these athletes, and you're doing it in conjunction with Penn State. So it's not one side of College Ave versus the other, it's a collaboration.
That's exactly right. It is a collaboration because we couldn't do it. One or the other couldn't do it by themselves. So, two is bigger than, sum of the whole. So when you look at, here's a great example of the community outreach. It just happened a couple months ago. University of Michigan reached out, and they have a very similar program. They're a couple years ahead of us, and they have a wheelchair basketball team. It's made up of students at University of Michigan and community members. They called us up and said, hey, we'd like to come in and bring our team in and have a game with your team. And our team is very similar. We have some players that come up from Harrisburg to practice and be on the team. So we had that going. Well, wouldn't you know it, the date they picked was spring break for Penn State. So we practice and play in the White Building on campus. Well, that was locked. So some hectic phone calls were made. I can't give State College High School enough credit for this. I got in touch with Lauren Crispell, the athletic director there. He put me in touch with the facility manager. That gentleman went bent over backwards. We will unlock it. When do you want it? What do you need? And that is, Chris, what you're getting at, this, what do you call it, town and gown, the community outreach. And, why do people want to come back to Happy Valley? What is so great about this? I mean, I had opportunities. I was living in Northern Virginia, and I guess you can call me the boomerang. It's standard boomerang. Graduated from Penn State, went away for 20 years, and here I am back again, brought my family back, who were not Penn State. They are now. But the community is so tied in. You think of a big university. If we were at UCLA in the middle of LA, you just kind of blend into the city. But here, we blend in with this community, and the community blends in with the university, and it's so exciting. I was at a restaurant the other night running into people I knew. When I worked at Penn State for 2 years when I first moved back here, and there were people I worked with there. So it is what seems overwhelming, this huge university, nationally, internationally recognized, but it really comes down to the people and the roots right here.
So speak to some of the volunteers that are driving this 501c3 nonprofit that you guys just invented a couple years ago. And name drop some of the people involved, your board, where do they live? They're all Penn Staters, right?
Yes, they are. They are all Penn Staters. So just to get to the point real quick, for several years, I said I was in the Navy, and for 20 years through the Penn State Navy ROTC program. I always wanted to fly. So that's what I did. And a very good friend of mine in the Navy, we did almost everything together, was at Notre Dame. And I still talk to him, even though he went to Notre Dame. He was the captain of their soccer team. But he had been saying for years, you need to meet this guy. He's a Penn Stater. You need to meet this guy. His name is Chuck Sapula. Well, nothing happened. Next thing I know, he's interested in the same program. And here we are. He calls me up, and he said, okay, we got to finally meet each other. And he got this program started and asked me to help him. So and he's a I can't remember the year. It's around 1970 graduate.
I think 68, 69. He played basketball for Penn State.
Right.
He was in Phi Delta Theta fraternity.
Yep. So he bleeds blue and white like all of us, and then reached out through one of his fraternity brothers, a former board of trustee member, Ryan McCumbee, who lives here. He did the same thing I did. He was in the Navy a couple years ahead of me. Came right back to the community after he left his service. Came back to State College. His son went to Penn State, just like my son went to Penn State. So from there, reached out to other people. Ryan on the board of trustee, he reached out to Alvin De La Vie, another trustee. We put an article in the Penn Stater magazine, our alumni magazine. That found Joe Klaus. He reads this thing, says, hey, I love helping do fundraising for nonprofits, handicapped focused events. So now we've got Joe Klaus. That reached out to a gentleman named Mike McHugh, who was a member of the program.
There you go.
So Mike was a member of the, at that time, ability athletes, now called adaptive athletes, under Terry Jordan. Well, he wanted to give back to what provided him a great college experience. And at the same time, some of the former ability athlete members who went to Paralympic Games are part of our board as well. They're like our subject matter experts. Maggie Redden, who was in Beijing. Jeff Hance, who I believe was in London. Jake Schramm, who was in Tokyo. He participated in Tokyo. And they were all under Terry and given back. They don't live in the community, but they come back a lot. And we couldn't do it without them. We have, and through different contexts, this gentleman named Keith McMinn, who is technically not a Penn Stater as far as a graduate, but you'd never know that. And his daughter's helping us because she was a wheelchair basketball at the University of Arizona. He works for Penn State Health, is a director of Lifeline, the helicopter, ambulance helicopter down in Hershey, and he's our subject matter expert. He grew up with his daughter had cerebral palsy, went on, and he will tell you these opportunities to children that have these challenges, you just can't explain how valuable it is. So there we are.
Quite a crew.
It is. And high energy. We have an event July 25th. Terry Smith is going to be our guest speaker. This will be our third event. Last year, Coach Godowski was our guest speaker. And we all know the story about Terry, I believe. You know, the wonderful experiences in his relationship with the university and the town. So very similar to Coach Godowski. So he'll be our guest speaker July 25th at the Penn Stater. So please go on to the Rise Above website and you can find out more information about it. And we're going to have many alums that will be there. Mike McCluskey, and I will guarantee you he was inbounds in the Nebraska game because he was right in front of me.
No comment.
So Mike Reed will be playing. An Altoona boy?
It's going to be an amazing event. Coach Campbell's going to be there, but Mike Reed's going to fly in for the second year in a row to perform on the keyboard and sing, you know, and he's the original recruiting class of Joe Paterno. But the fact that Terry is the keynote speaker, Coach Campbell's going to be there to mix and mingle. Right. Mike McCluskey, Sue Paterno, and Dana Harris are the hosts of the event. Exactly. So it's just another example of, you know, the community rallying around. It's going to be at the Penn Stater. It's just been recently remodeled. I know Gary's donating, I believe, the room, you know, who owns the Penn Stater. You know, it's just a wonderful event. July 25th starts at 5:30, and it's going to be a full buffet dinner, get a drink ticket, but it's going to be really mix and mingle with the multi-generations from Sue Paterno, Franco Harris's wife, Dana, McCluskey, Mike Reed.
Our athletes
your
will be there.
athletes, all the athletes that have been performing quite well in the past year. And Jack Cunningham, the track guy, he appeared in the Apple commercial, right?
Yep. Our director, Brenna O'Connor, will be there, obviously, because they're her athletes. On the Penn State side, we have, like I mentioned, Sam McMinn, who's a coach of our wheelchair basketball, DJ and Alexis Wilson, sled hockey. And just to back up just a second, we talked about Coach Godowski. That guy gets it. He is the epitome.
No question.
The epitome of what we're talking about here. We grew up, you know, with Joe Paterno and Penn State and the town and gown and believe in who you are, but the world is bigger than you. And he has gotten that point across to his players. And there's a gentleman there who got the NCAA Good Humanitarian Award he started a program where he connected, under Coach Godowski's guidance, the men's varsity hockey team and our community sled hockey team. The varsity hockey players would go hop in sleds on Sunday at practice and help the team out, help them get their sleds ready, and got to know the players. Like I said, and that team has a 10-year-old to us. I think he's 68 actually, players. So they started up their fundraiser to help these athletes be able to afford the ice time and so forth. Every winter, it's called the Sled Hockey Classic, and Coach Godowski and many of his players hop in sleds and they play the sled hockey team in a game. And then the players that aren't in sleds, the varsity players, they're running the scoreboard, they're doing the announcing. They raise between $18,000 and $20,000 on a cold winter Sunday morning in the Pagula Ice Arena, and that helps fund the ice time and the tournaments that sled hockey team attends. But that he set the stage. Maybe I'm speaking out of line here, but from my perspective on what can be done.
Well, and I think that's why Terry Smith is going to be the keynote speaker. And Coach Campbell's going to be there. I always say it's kind of unifying the special feelings and emotions we have for the Penn State University. It's going to be a wonderful event. Talk a little bit about some of the athletes and the relationship you've had as a volunteer now to get to know them, get to know their parents, and how this enriches you and why volunteering is why we say is the blue zone, the blue-white zone. And it's the hallmark of chicken soup for the soul and human flourishing. But tell me what you've gotten out of it as someone serving such a great cause.
And before you answer that question, Bernie, let's just remind the audience that we're talking with Bernie Ryan, who is a board member of Rise Above, and you can go to PennStateRiseAbove.org to get your tickets for this great event we've been talking about. Keynote speech from Terry Smith, assistant head coach, defensive backs coach at Penn State, of course, held the program together when it felt like it was coming apart at the seams last fall. There's going to be a panel discussion of several former Penn State lettermen, hosted by Steve Jones. Sue Paterno is going to be there, and I know Sue is a big backer of Rise Above and everything you guys are doing. And there's going to be a musical performance by Mike Reed, the legendary defensive tackle on the undefeated 68 and 69 teams. Also a Grammy Award-winning musician, great exemplar of both sides of the grand experiment, success on and off the field. Doesn't do a lot of live performances anymore. So great value, great cause to support Penn State's Ability Athletics program. So yeah, let's go back to talking about the beneficiaries here, Bernie. Tell us about the athletes and your experiences with them and just what your organization is supporting.
Well, just to back up just a little bit, we're going to talk about the athletes, and it is a fundraiser, but it's also an awareness. I think one of the classic examples of awareness is one of our new board members in this last year, Alvin DeLaVie. He came last year just hearing about it through his fellow former Board of Trustee member and friend, Ryan McCumbee. Mm-hmm. He said it just blew him away when he watched some of our athletes get up there and talk about, and trust me, these athletes don't want sympathy. They just want an opportunity, and that's what they want. And that's what I think is so impressive. And you mentioned, what got me attention to it was my military background, the veterans that are coming back, banged up for whatever reason, and seeing them and their can-do attitude. It goes all the way down. They can be 2 years old all the way up to into their 60s. And actually, if you look at the Paralympics, it's amazing how old many of those Paralympians are. And they just keep competing. My daughter has a friend on the Paris cycling team. He's 50 years old. Probably he was in Paris. He may be in LA in a couple of years at 54, 56. So anyways, you get to know this because of my ties years ago. You come here, you see these gentlemen. I'll use one of our athletes lived up in Scranton. He would drive 2 to 2.5 hours every Sunday, he and his dad, just to come to a sled hockey practice. He's now a rising sophomore. But as Jeff Hance, I quoted him many times, he was a player underneath Terry Jordan and went to the London Games, I believe, as a javelin thrower. He's a lawyer in Pittsburgh now. He said, to get the opportunity not only to do what I thought I could do as a handicapped athlete, but to try something else. He came here thinking he was one type of athlete. He fell in love with throwing javelin, and that's what took him to London. But it's not that everybody's going to go to LA, for example, in 2028. But the studies have been done, and I've read the papers. There's a gentleman from the University of Houston. How much better and more likely they'll be an individual that has a handicap, has a setback, they're going to be an asset to society by one, participating in things, in our case, sports, not only as a youth, but all the way through their college years, and how much more likely, the percentage is astronomical, they will be an asset to society, vice the other way around. So when you meet these individuals, these young men and women, we have both. We have about 6 athletes right now, and they're all going into sophomore year. Now we have a young lady coming up to be a freshman this year. We have a gentleman, she has cerebral palsy, quite the long jumper. We have a sled hockey player coming from New Mexico. But our current team, as a gentleman, he's Mexican heritage. His father was born in Mexico. They came from California to be on our sled hockey team. Not only can he play sled hockey, I've never seen a guy spin so fast in a wheelchair. He's basketball, he's track, and that goes back to what I said about Jeff Hans, opportunity, providing opportunity, vice focused on one single event. And that's what we want to give that opportunity. And it's interesting, we have several interns that come and help out with, Brennan O'Connor, whether it's in a weight room with the training. Brennan has told me that they're usually kinesiology majors or something. That has opened them up, their eyes to a whole other world where several of them said, I think this is the type of career I want to proceed, in rehab and so forth like that.
Wonderful. Go ahead, Chris. Well, you talk about the draw of this program, pulling people from all over the country. How do people find out about it? What's that process like? Walk us through a little bit of this world. I'm always fascinated to talk to people about these little niche undertakings that you don't maybe know a whole lot about them until you start to scratch below the surface and you realize how much goes into it. And already you're talking about cross-country trips.
International.
International, so transatlantic, trans-Pacific. Just walk us through that process.
Well, we know Penn State's name. Penn State's a great name because of people we've talked about earlier. And I'm just going to capitalize it. There's an event that happens once, maybe twice, once a year down in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, in an athletic facility called Spooky Nook. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's an incredible, just look it up. It's an amazing facility. So Penn State Health, under Dr. Anaswamy, sets up this program called RecFest. And it's to show individuals with handicaps what they can do. And they have, it's a sports facility. So we have wheelchair basketball, they have field hockey, they have soccer, they have track type, just to show what can happen. So they bring some people in, like a Maggie Redden. She was a guest speaker. Tom Morris, a Penn Stater, who I'll see here shortly, he's going to be the guest speaker this year. So Brennan and I were at the event, I think it was 2 years ago, when this was Penn State's adaptive sports program was just starting to break out. We walked down, of course, we have our Penn State t-shirts on, and we know if you wear a Penn State, I'll take a side here, you can wear a Penn State shirt anywhere in this world, and you're going to meet somebody. And I'm going to give you a quick story on how. I was an international pilot. I flew for FedEx, flew around the world. I was in Tokyo, and there was the guy in the hotel lobby with a Paul Plesnewski football jersey on in Tokyo. We were talking, he worked for AccuWeather. But so anyways, back to this. So we're in this RecFest, and Brennan and I are walking around. There's this young girl. She's like 10 years old. I'll break down just thinking about this. Her parents looked at us, saw our T-shirts that said Penn State Adaptive Sports, and they just stopped, came up to us and said, is Penn State starting their program again? And they got so excited. They went over and over, and this young girl was so excited in the wheelchair. The name Penn State carries, we know, and we're very proud of it, obviously. We all bleed blue and white. And the opportunity, because there's a little bit of a black hole in this part of the country for that type of opportunity.
Okay.
We've talked about Illinois, Arizona, Alabama, and Michigan is just going gangbusters with a gentleman going there. Northwestern has just started a program, University of Washington. So we're kind of thinking maybe we need a Big Ten adaptive sports conference. But anyways, the name Penn State just resonates with people. And when we talk to some of these youngsters, especially when our wheelchair basketball or our sled hockey team that has youth in it, when they go to these youth tournaments, that's planting the seed. In 2 weeks, 2 weeks from today, we'll be having our wheelchair basketball sports camp. Just like the 100 other sports camps that are going on here in campus, we are having our second, well, it's technically our third, but our second wheelchair basketball camp. And we are blessed to have a gentleman named Michael Allprince, the head coach for Alabama's wheelchair basketball program, a gentleman who had been on the Australian national team, who is an assistant coach for the USA Paralympic wheelchair basketball team. He will be running the camp. this year. And we have 25 people, and actually kind of had to turn away a couple. Like I said, there's a void here that we're trying to fill.
That's interesting when you talk about a lack of other opportunities in this general region of the country. When you can pair up that with what you just described accurately as the global draw, the Penn State brand, that's a real opportunity for you guys.
Oh, it's in the military, we call it a target-rich environment.
So I know you have to get rolling to go up
Yeah.
to Penn State and talk
Right.
to Tom Morris, actually, right?
Correct.
About the camp or other things.
Yes.
What is the vision? You guys just started this nonprofit a couple years ago. Speak a little bit about the vision that Rise Above has and the opportunity to maybe fill this.
In the long term, I think this is a potential cradle-to-grave type of organization. We provide those opportunities for youngsters to get them out of their chairs, off their couches, participating. As one man told us, his son is on our wheelchair basketball team. He said, I know everybody thinks about the athletes, giving them the opportunities. When I had my son, my son was growing up, and I don't know exactly what his handicap is, but he's wheelchair bound. And boy, can he spin a basketball. He can play basketball too. And he's about 30 years old. But he says, I thought at first, would I be able, I'll never get to stand next to my fellow dads, watch my son play soccer or Little League baseball, because this challenge he has. To see him having this opportunity, smiling, having fun, and I'm with these dads. I'm with you. I'm standing here watching my son play. He goes, it's not only is it for him, it's for me. And he didn't come across selfish or anything like that. So the vision is, we do that. Obviously, Penn State, with their assets, their knowledge, just their outreach opportunity, because they can become, as I call it, the center of excellence for those individuals to help the youth, to help programs set up. Just like an ag extension guy goes out to the field to help the farmers, or the Mobile Lion. If you've heard of the Mobile Lion from Penn State Health. So they go out to the community, take their health expertise. This is in our world, in the sports world, and the adaptive sports world. How can we help that, develop that? And obviously, for the youth, it ends up possibly being a pipeline to Penn State, to our programs here. Mm-hmm. Also, opportunity for education, whether they want to continue to participate. And then when they're finished at Penn State, or even if they don't go to Penn State, they've been in our programs, it's something for them to do for a lifelong, you can call it the lifelong learning, but the lifelong activity type of opportunity. So where does Rise Above in this? I think if we look downstream, to steal your term, the North Star, where are we going? I think it's that. Provide those opportunities for all ages. Reach out to community, Chris, that you said that Penn State is so good at doing, to reaching out and including the community. That's where we get it. And Penn State can be that foundation for that.
So come on out, July 25th. Meet Bernie and hear
Meet
Coach Terry Smith.
There'll be a lot of people there.
But what's the common thread about all your volunteers? This event, it's their third year. Last year sold out. It was standing room only. This year, hopefully it's going to sell out again. But, what's at the core of all this? What's the common thread that has you doing this? You're a complete volunteer. All of you guys are volunteer. This is volunteer, started, funded, driven. Like, I'm just fascinated. And that's why we have this Connect Happy Valley. Like, why?
I think if you don't have a cause, that doesn't mean you have to be saving the world. Just find your cause. And otherwise, you kind of have a void. You don't know it till you fill it. Mm-hmm. And once you start filling it, you kind of like, this is okay. Now, it can become a little bit overwhelming at times. You got to watch. You don't get get too involved in the sense that you can't get your daily work done. But it fills that void that sometimes, and I'll be honest, I didn't know I had. It was just, we talked about in the beginning, what attracted me, it was my military, the veterans, and then that just opened up other doors that I didn't realize were there until I started participating. And as far as this stuff goes, it's interesting when you walk around town, because this town, it's big, but it's small. At the YMCA, I go over to the YMCA, you're talking to people there, you're seeing it. At church, our running groups, it's, you're at dinner, this stuff comes up, and then people get to know you as, oh, you're that Rise Above guy, or something like that. But that's okay. It's fun.
Well, you said now it's the family business. Your daughter's in the Paralympians. Your son's
She
in the
works-
military.
yeah.
It's a family of
Wow.
service. Your wife, Carrie, yeah, just service is at the heart of it all. And it's just fun to watch all the stuff you're doing. It's been fun to see the ascension of Rise Above and just talk about grassroots movement by Penn State, helping Penn Staters and attracting students here. It's just a wonderful thing to be a part of.
Well, everybody, Greg, when you see excited, you and Chris get excited, and that makes me excited to know that, okay, maybe I'm not going down the wrong path here.
Well, and you meet some of these athletes like Max, and it's just like I said, it's chicken soup for the soul. So thank you, Bernie, for your service.
Oh, thanks for the invitation, opportunity.
Yeah, we appreciate you being here, Bernie. It sounds like we're really just at the beginning of the journey here for Rise Above at Penn State,
think
which is
so.
exciting.
I think so.
I always think it's fun to get in on the ground floor with some of these projects, and then you go 5-10 years down the line, and you find a moment to pause and look back from where you came and where you're at, and you can appreciate that you created something. And that's what I love about the synthesis between college and community that we have here in Happy Valley. There's the potential for that like there is in few other places.
Exactly. That combination of the university and the community is invaluable.
So it is PennStateRiseAbove.org, January 25th at the Penn State Conference Center.
July.
I said January. Yeah, no, it's July 25th. It's this month. Penn State Conference Center and Hotel. Coach Terry Smith, the keynote speaker, but a lot of other cool stuff. A panel with Penn State letterman. Sue Paterno is going to be there. There's going to be a musical performance by Mike Reed. And as you've heard from Bernie this morning, it's all going to go to support a great cause. And I think one of the rising great stories to come out of Happy Valley, only in its opening chapters. Bernie, thanks so much. We appreciate,
Thank you,
we
Bernie.
appreciate you joining
Thank you.
us. Thanks
Thank
so
you, man.
much.
That's
No,
okay.
no, you
Appreciate
can go
it.
off to, you're a busy guy. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Bernie.
Thanks so much for your time.
Getting this program started, making our community realize how great it is.
It is coming along, Bernie, and we're so pleased and honored to have Bernie Ryan as one of our first guests. What a good dude, Greg.
He is. And we didn't have time because he had to get rolling, is that just watching him live through his week as a retired guy, he is busier than anyone because he runs from the one nonprofit to another. He has these coffee clatches out at Wegmans with the old Penn State coaches, so he is dialed in, and he goes to the YMCA every day and lifts weights, and he's got little pods and community little clubs day in, day out.
I mean, I don't know that you have to work too hard to make the case for Happy Valley as a retirement destination, but you did a pretty good job right there. Here's a guy who gets his degree from Penn State as part of the ROTC program, fulfills his dream of becoming a naval pilot, then flies all around the world with FedEx. But when it was come time to decide where to settle down, sounds like there was really only one choice for Bernie. And think about it. He's close to his alma mater, in a great community. You talked about the trips to the YMCA to go work out. Very, very fitness-oriented community. I think there's a great, thriving health and wellness community here in Happy Valley, which I think will highlight as the weeks and months roll on here on Connect Happy Valley A.M. But Bernie said something that resonated with me, which is you've got to give yourself something to get excited about, a reason to wake up in the morning that's going to energize you beyond just what you do for your job. And that's another great thing about this place. No matter what your interest, no matter what your skill set, there's going to be a chance for you to go and contribute whatever the good Lord blessed you with to, find personal fulfillment, but probably support a good cause as well.
What if it all just comes down to, Chris, you got to fall in love with something? It's about falling in love.
Yeah, it's falling in love with people, place, activities,
and the
all of those
choices,
things.
we
Yeah.
make. As I attempt to teach entrepreneurship for the last 20 years, I always stress that if you're going to want to solve a problem in capitalism, you got to be in love with solving that problem. Mm-hmm. And so it all comes
Now,
back
why
to,
do you say that, by the way?
because you got to withstand and be resilient from all the glass you have to walk over to get a business up and going. You have to be in love with solving a problem or you're going to quit. Or the first punch you get. What do they say in a boxing match? The best laid plans end when you get punched in the face.
Yeah, it
in
was
the
Mike
first round.
Tyson. Everyone has a plan until they start getting punched in the face.
And so you got to be in love. You know, I call it the care meter. Do you really care, or are you just a wantrepreneur? You know, you just want to be a part of the Texcelerator. Are you really in love? You know, it's no question. I feel strongly that we're in love with solving a connection problem, and that's why we have Bernie here. We're in love with amplifying his love for adaptive athletes, his love for Happy Valley, his love for Penn State. His wife, not from Penn State, he had to twist her arm a little bit to move here from Northern Virginia. But it's been proven to be a great choice for him, and we're here to amplify these choices. His parents are still alive down in Hershey, which he's going to pop down there Tuesday and Wednesday this week, helping out with his parents. You know, so the location, sense of place. He's got a Penn State athlete who was on the swim team here. His daughter went to Grove City. But yeah, we'd love them to boomerang back. He would love them to boomerang back to State College.
I like that he's a boomeranger. We love boomerangs here on Connect Happy Valley AM. We want a lot more of them, and not just for retirement, for sure, although it is a great place for that. I do just want to reflect a little bit on a couple of things Bernie said over the course of his half hour here with us, and we appreciate him being generous with his time as we work closer and closer to making this look like what it's going to be in its final iteration. We're getting some guests on this week, which is a lot of fun. But you talked about how Bernie's wife, not a Penn State alumna, but has really gotten into the spirit of it and appreciates the community. Bernie talked about one of his fellow board members, not a Penn State grad or one of the volunteers, but he said you could be fooled pretty easily. It reminded me of a great quote from Jay Paterno that I use a lot. I use it in my Penn State football class. Having a Penn State degree doesn't automatically make you a Penn Stater, and you can be a Penn Stater. You can become a Penn Stater without having a Penn State degree. His dad, Joe Paterno, a great example. It's a mindset. It's something you feel in your head, in your heart. And when I think about the story he told, and this is what we do on Connect Happy Valley AM, we tell the stories of the place. I wanted to highlight the potential that can be unleashed when you have an undertaking like this that pairs up the resources. He talked about the value of the brand name of Penn State University in terms of drawing ability athletes from all over the country and the world, and the resources of this community, not the least of which are its people. And you put them together. Here we got two former trustees, one of whom is a former Navy SEAL, another ex-Navy guy, Penn State grad. You got Sue Paterno, Dana Harris, Franco Harris's wife, who is just an absolute force of nature in her own right, also a Penn State alum. And they get connected through the hub that is their shared association with Penn State. And these are all incredible, accomplished, smart, dynamic people. And they find an opportunity to support a cause. They match it up with everything Penn State, the name, and the institution have to offer. And they're off and running. I believe, Greg, that we're going to look back on this conversation we had with Bernie today, as I said, 5 or 10 years later, and see how this has really blossomed into a program that fills that unoccupied niche he talked about here in the Mid-Atlantic and on the East Coast for athletes who have whatever challenge that they want to look for an opportunity to compete. And I think Penn State's going to become an epicenter for that. And when it does, I think it's going to be because of everything I just laid out.
And it's just fun to watch the ingredients to that, the recipe of what they're cooking up, trying to mix puns and metaphors there, is that there's a lot of love there, a lot of love of service and people coming together, kind of the common kindred spirit of them coming together, and then just watching them, like Mike Reed coming back a second year, because, you know, Sue calls and says, hey, this is important to me, this cause. You know, and Chuck, who played basketball here in 1968-69, you know, who started this thing up a couple years ago, quite an interesting man, full of love in his heart. He went to Beijing with Terry Jordan to kind of just as a donor, as a guest, and that it got into his heart, and he's in love with solving this problem. Bernie, you can just see, he wants to have this as a mid-Atlantic, for all types, youth to adults. He sees a vision for this program to serve. And it's just fun.
And it should be.
Yes. I mean, it's just fun. We just came off our 250th birthday and watching all these documentaries this weekend. What is the ingredients of getting major things done? There's a common thread there that it's just fun talking about. You taught me something last week, that alma mater means dear mother. Mm-hmm. So I guess getting together every day talking about these things, I'm learning a lot.
So you mentioned the 4th of July, and it was America 250 this past weekend. Amazing, amazing opportunity to celebrate that incredible accomplishment and be grateful for our opportunity to call ourselves Americans. I mean, man, what a blessing that is. I'm curious how you spent your 4th of July, Greg.
I went up and saw the fireworks.
Yeah, as did I.
Very impressive, coming to America to music and to the fireworks and Katy Perry's fireworks song. I recorded it and was broadcasting it to my children, out in San Diego, Scottsdale, Pittsburgh.
Is that right?
Because I guess DC got a little rained out or whatever. So I was broadcasting the fireworks. Very proud. I was right next to the speaker. And,
now, did they grow up attending Fourth Fest fireworks celebrations?
They grew up attending. It means a lot to them, this Fourth Fest fireworks.
We've talked about it previously. At one time, Fourth Fest was the largest all-volunteer fireworks display in the country for sure, but I believe potentially in the world. We got a lot of those here in Happy Valley. Largest student-run philanthropy, the largest independent student media outlet in Onward State. And again, we had at one time, not right now, although I think kind of like an ability athletes program, that's an opportunity to just waiting to be reinvigorated by the right people. But the largest all-volunteer fireworks display in the country. Amazing. Little Happy Valley.
Well, when you hear this word, we heard it today with Bernie, volunteers, grassroots, guerrilla marketing, I call it, where people come together, Tocquevillian, create an association, they have a vision and a dream. And I remember when that Fourth Fest was starting, Dan Barker, who actually created the company Fireworks One. He owned the local radio station, and he was the first one, and I think, that invented putting fireworks to music. And now it's a global company, and he got this thing started. Maybe the Kiwanis maybe started it before. He was the one that elevated it with the radio station, his company Fireworks One. It became, but it was a grassroots thing. It was people coming together.
I have heard that story, and I had completely forgotten it. Let's not let that pass down.
Oh, there's so many stories we have. That's why we have to expand it 2 hours, Chris.
Yeah,
there's so many guests we have. But I just learned this morning at 6 a.m. that the Arts Festival was started as a students' spring arts festival by students that grew into this arts festival that starts Wednesday. Back to one of your mentors and heroes, Ben Novak. He was the one that informed me in his book, is Penn State a real university, that the
Arts
Arts
you're finally
Festival,
getting around to reading that.
That the Arts
Great.
Festival was started by students. It was a spring arts festival. I mean, everything in that book was started by students. From the dance marathon to homecoming to the arts festival to the student union building was raised by student activity fees by students. The bookstore was started by students in a book co-op. I mean, I am just so inspired that students are the backbone. Well, it's the kind of things we were building up. That's where the innovation came from. That's where all the fraternities were done by students. They said the best loan a banker could have given in 1922 was a group of 40 men to build a 30-year mortgage fraternity, which gave us all of this growth because it was student-led. Well, I'm just amazed. And then you see what this rise above. We get the 250th anniversary of our founding. What is this co-op coming together? We call it Amish co-op, the dairy co-op, the Oddfellows building that we're sitting in here. Like, are we sitting upon just an amplification of how things get done?
Well, there's so much potential to take lessons from your past if you know the stories. And they can inform the way you approach your present. And which is why I'm glad you brought up that book, Is Penn State a real university? Get it at nittany.org on the Nittany Valley Press tab. And all of the history about student initiative being the seed that grows into a lot of the things that exist and we now kind of take for granted in Happy Valley today. The university is the backbone of this community. There's no question. If you don't like it, I'm sorry, it's called State College, and that's not by coincidence. The students are the backbone of the university. And your point about the construction of the student union building, that was when it actually meant something to assess an activity fee. It wasn't just some compulsory charge that was buried deep in the bill you got from the bursar's office. That was a meaningful decision that was made by the student body at the time, and they executed on it. And I think it probably would do the modern student body well to be more frequently reminded of the proactive role their predecessors made in growing the university. And beyond that, I think all of us in Happy Valley can benefit, as we've discussed many times already on this program, though we've only been doing it for a couple of weeks, is that all of us here can find some benefit in knowing our story.
Oh, I've been going deep in some of these stories now on the role of nonprofits in our community. Discovery Space, the Rivet. We talked about, certainly you like to certainly talk about Mount Nittany Conservancy, started by Ben Novak in 1981. Leadership Center County, how nonprofits, how our commercial businesses, came about blending together for our #1 fireworks in the world at one point. Back to the hallmark of democracy and Tocqueville and co-ops. It's just really fascinating, and I'm delighted to be a part of Connect Happy Valley as we go into these topics of how a community runs, how it runs and what talent and manpower is done by volunteers and nonprofits. I'm delighted to be here talking about such things.
Yeah. This table leg has got to get moved around. I'm getting pinned up against it. Anyway,
we're learning.
Good stuff. This program is in its learning and evolution stages for sure. So I'm fascinated, Greg, that you're reading the book now, because I gave you a copy of this, and I'm grateful you're reading it. I'm a big giver of books as gifts for a couple of reasons. First of which is that not too many people are readers these days. I think even I know that I struggle to get a book cracked open when I'm fighting against the urge to just read news. Most of it is disposable nonsense, and I also have doom scrolling as an option available to me. But I think if you're going to give someone a gift, it can be memorable if it's unusual. And to get a book in 2026 is unusual and therefore memorable. Also, I think you're given the gift of knowledge. You're saying, hey, I respect your intellect. I think you could grow as a person. I could give you this gift of knowledge. And also, I'm a big just fan and completely fascinated by the story of the Michael Jordan Chicago Bulls and the way that collection of talent came together to consistently produce excellence over the course of a decade. And Phil Jackson, their head coach, was a big part of that, the winningest coach in NBA history, 11 rings, 6 with the Bulls, and then went on and replicated his success with another talented roster in Los Angeles. And he's written a few books, but his first book, Sacred Hoops, is probably his best, in my opinion. And Phil Jackson's a big gift giver of books. And he admits, as I admit, that you do so with the knowledge that 50% plus of those books are never going to be read. But nevertheless, it's just a show of, I think, respect and fellowship And you hope maybe every once in a while you're going to plant one of those seeds. So I'm curious, how far are you into the book? What have you taken away from it so far?
I'll tell you what I've taken away from it, and I just started it this morning at about 5 o'clock, 5:30.
Okay.
Is in the book.
It's a quick read. It's like 90 pages.
Well, the hypothesis is that John Cardinal Newman said 80 years ago or so long ago, if you had a choice to gather 30,000 students and stick them in central Pennsylvania without any classes versus having just classes taken by 30,000 through television or correspondence, they were using words back then, which would be better? And the hypothesis is 30,000 students with no classes would have more innovation, more learning, more deeper learning, given that that's the way to go. And so he uses two universities, one in the classroom and one outside the classroom. The whole book, and I'm jumping around already,
sure,
is the thesis that it's outside.
90 pages long.
Well, it's out. Well,
you're saying you're jumping around from topic to topic.
No,
Okay,
I'm jumping
yeah.
around. In the book, I went to the, because they're a series of articles, and so you can do that.
Right.
And it's pretty much that things we talked about last week, ironically, was completely what that book's about. It's the activities outside of the classroom that makes a real university. And he talks about the Lion, the radio station you were involved with. It talks about fraternities, talks about student government, talks about late night discussions at 1 a.m. are more important than the calculus class. So I'm, as you can imagine, eating it up because everything I think I've stood for since the first day I walked on this campus, that it was outside the classroom that I came of age and thrived and came out of my shell and practiced a lot of what that book is talking about. And it's things that I teach in my class too. It's these soft skills as we're talking about them now. And Ben, to his credit, he nailed this back in 1965, as the president of the student government and as a trustee for 20 or so years. He's been advocating, and in his letter that he ends the book with about nothingness or the everlasting life, about his plea that we have to get back to this or we're not a real university.
Oh, yeah. There's he's talking about the never-ending story, a movie you've never seen. I already did one reference to the nothing and the nothingness as a villain. I had totally forgotten that he referenced that in that book, so I just pulled that out of my own brain. But yeah, again, I wish, truly, Greg, I wish every Penn Stater, and frankly, I wish everybody in this country who's working on education policy could read that book. We've heard from people who have absolutely no ties to Penn State whatsoever. No family connection, no college or professional or educational connection. They're just people who are somewhere in the higher ed space who, through one circumstance or another, have come across a copy of Is Penn State a Real University, read it cover to cover, and reached out to the Conservancy and said, hey, thank you guys for publishing this and making it available because it's one of the most provocative meditations we have read on higher ed and what it's supposed to be anywhere. You guys must have something pretty good going on up there in Happy Valley. True story.
Well, I think it's great. Neil Diamond's Sweet Caroline was not a #1 song. I'm thinking as I read that book this morning that in the age of AI, this is a #1 best-selling book for a Penn State alum and for our trustees and for all the faculty in the Senate. But I'm telling you, the student at the center, let them be unleashed. And they're going to be innovative. They're going to have the deepest learning. But they have to be here on campus. They have to. It's a statement that it has to be a co-residential experience. No, they were using words like correspondence, no TV, no AI, no Zoom. It has to be you and I over a beer at 11 o'clock or in a fraternity or in a radio or in a case statement in a classroom talking to your professor. It's a case for human connection, where real learning happens. And our university is saying it, but that was a pretty darn good prescription on how to execute it. And the devil's in the detail of execution.
I'm glad you're enjoying it. again, as we work through the kinks of this program, I will talk to our producer live on camera and just say I hope Chelsea can go over to the little bird's nest over in the other side of the room and turn us off, or she'll be on. Oh, there she is. Okay, great. Normally I got a laptop up here. Things get kind of just got to threw us a curveball as we started. But before we close, Greg, let's just again remind the audience. We had Bernie Ryan here, board member from Penn State Rise Above Ability Athletics Program. Go to their website, PennStateRiseAbove.org. Learn more about the program. Buy yourself a couple of tickets to go to this great event on July 25th at the Penn Stater. Really, really cool. I can't wait to hear Terry Smith, keynote speaker. You want to talk about great stories of the Nittany Valley. Terry's life story from start to finish is one of those, and he added one incredible chapter to it last fall. So we're going to be back tomorrow here at Pine Grove Hall at 9 a.m. on Connect Happy Valley A.M. Until then, have a great Monday and enjoy Happy Valley.